Welcome to Kubota Garden. My name is Don Brooks. I spent 30 years here as the head gardener, retiring about 2 years ago. And we're just doing a brief introduction to the garden, showing you different sections that the Kubota's worked on, that Seattle Parks has worked on, and just giving you a story about each of the areas just to familiarize yourself a little more with the garden. Here we are in the section of the garden known as the Japanese garden. We're in the lower part of the garden. This was really the first section that the Kubotas built what would be now considered a complete garden. We're in the process of doing some restoration work, looking at old photographs, perhaps some you'll see in the movie, and bringing it back a little bit more to the character of the garden at that time. This plant behind us, the large Japanese white pine, probably the premier plant of the garden, was much smaller back in the day. It's grown, and those kinds of things have to be factored into any decisions on how to work in the garden itself. Here we are in the lower garden again with the Mapes Creek, which was only named about 25 years ago after an early Rainier Valley pioneer. The red heart bridge is behind me. This was really the first section that the Kubotas really developed, because this was a swamp, and they impounded water in various places to create the 5 ponds of the necklace of ponds. We're now partway up the mountainside, a garden that the Kubotas completed in the early 1960s in time for the Seattle World's Fair. The intention was to create more of a walk in the mountains, so paths are narrower, steeper, plantings are much tighter, more crowded, but it was, like I say, it was to invoke being in the mountains. We're in the Tom Kubota Stroll garden, completed in about 1999. This was designed primarily by Tom Kubota, son of Fujitaro. Tom was my mentor, and he spent 75 years working in this garden. We're still in the Tom Kubota Stroll garden, and I want to tell a story about some of this particular stone. I received a phone call from Boeing in Renton when they were going to be demolishing a building, asking if I would like some plants. I went and looked at it and said, I'd like plants, but I'd really like the stones. And I told Tom, I said, Tom, we've got some great stones, let's go look at them. It was a square building, and we started a distance away from this one and walked all the way around the building, him looking at every stone, seeing which one was I talking about. We came around the corner and his eyes just lit up. So this is the stone. Now we're standing at the entrance to the stone garden, which leads to the maple woods. These are both 2 sections of the gardens that I designed. This gate was the original gate at the Japanese garden in the Arboretum. When they built a new entrance, we salvaged it and brought it here, which is a long held practice that the Kubotas adopted and that we followed as well, bringing things in from other places. Sometimes we've had plants from people's yards or things like that. So behind us is a whole bunch of stone that was collected in a private garden that I had observed for many years about a mile from here. So I reimagined virtually all of the stone placements in here from the original Kubota's placement from the early 60s, except for the small water feature, which I did a direct copy of. So that looks exactly like the Kubotas placed it in the garden that they built. So we've just come inside the gate, and I just wanted to talk briefly about what we call the Pro Parks project about 15 years ago or so, where the city of Seattle basically gave us $1 million matching grant through the Department of Neighborhoods, and we built the entrance to the garden, which involved the parking lot, the entrance road coming in, the fully ADA, Americans with Disability Act path, which meets all those requirements coming in. We rebuilt the pond, dredged 200 yards of silt out of the pond, and did all the plantings around it, which was a great project, really added to the feel of being in a beautiful garden. We're finishing up on the Kubota Terrace with the Ishigaki, the Japanese stone wall. This wall was built by a 14th and 15th generation stonemasons from Japan who came over and supervised a group of us building this. The whole wall itself was done in a 9-day period, and then the structure on top was built by our Seattle Parks Department carpenters with a design by a local architect named Bob Hoshiday. Bob Hoshiday, beautiful, beautiful piece of project.